Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to another gaming rules review. In this video, I'm going to be telling you what I think about Barrage, designed by Tommaso Battista and Simone Luciani and published by Cranio Creations. Now, this was a successful Kickstarter campaign in 2018 and is being delivered to backers around the time that I'm filming this video. This is July 2019 and it's being delivered to backers now. Now, how have I got a copy? So I have a professional working relationship with Cranio Creations. I contacted them when I went to Origins and I said, look, Barrage is a game which looks fantastic. A lot of people who like the same kind of games I like are super excited about it and looking forward to it. I'll be honest with you, I didn't back the game, but is there any chance that you're able to get me a copy and I'll potentially do a review of it? And they brought a copy over, gave it me at Origins, and I brought it back with me. So that's what this is. So I was lucky enough to get a copy of the game before backers got it, and I have been playing it, and this is my review of it. Now, quick shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. Thank you very much to all of you who basically make these videos possible. If you enjoy the content that I create, then please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules. And this is one of the games that my Patreon supporters voted on as a game that I would review this month. Now, a number of people are probably tuning into this video because they're interested in the component quality. Now, I am going to be covering the component quality in this video, but I am going to be focusing also on the gameplay. I'm fully aware that when I got the game back from Origins, suddenly I was made aware of all of the controversy around the game, and I'm not going to go into that too much here, but I know that the publishers come in for a lot of criticism regarding some of the components and the delays and everything else. The version that I have here, I believe, is a similar version to what's being delivered to Kickstarter backers. I cannot guarantee, because this was an earlier copy, I don't know if 100% this is exactly the same as what backers are getting, and I've not seen that many pictures of people getting it around the world. So I think it's mostly the same, but please bear that in mind that this may not be the final version of the game. It may be, I don't quite know. So anyway, let's talk about what this game is. Barrage is a game set in the 1930s, I think 1922 specifically. It's in the Alps. It's kind of a dystopian alternative history. And basically what you're doing is you are generating energy by building dams to trap the water, running the water through the conduits, through your power stations, or powerhouses I think they're called, and generating energy to fulfill contracts which get you other stuff and victory points. The player with the most points wins the game after 5 rounds. And there are a number of routes to victory. I've certainly seen one game of this won where the player didn't really do any energy production, but there's lots of other things that you can do that get you points in the game as well. So the game's played over 5 rounds. It is a worker placement game, so you will be placing your 12 engineers. You'll be going around the table one at a time, placing your engineers generally on this part up here, which is all the different action spaces, or on your own player board. And you will be taking actions to either build stuff on the board, take new contracts, get new excavators or concrete mixers, which are these things which you'll need to build, or actually generating energy. And then at the end of the round, you work out who's produced the most energy. There are various points available for that. There's an end game scoring tile as well. The replayability, the variability is quite a lot. So let's cover that as the first thing that I like about the game. The game comes with these scoring tiles. I think I've lost one. Yeah. It's here. Right, so the game comes with these scoring tiles and you will shuffle these and randomly place them over there, and that tile will be scored at the end of round 1, that one at the end of round 2, etc, etc. These give you points based on what you've done in the game. So that is going to influence your decisions about the order in which you build things. Also, there's an end game scoring tile. I think there's 6 of them in the game, maybe 7, and that's going to adjust, what you do in the game as well. Each player has a player board. There are 4 included in the base game. They have asymmetric powers. Basically, things do something slightly different, and there is a power. And you also get an executive officer. And there are, I think, 7 or 8 executive officers in the game. And what happens at the start of the game is that you will basically randomly pick one executive officer for each of the nations. This is France, this is Germany. There's a couple of other ones as well. And then they will be drafted in reverse player order, along with the starting contract. Wherever the starting contracts are, they're over there, but you get a starting contract. So you will choose, and the executive officer has a special ability as well. So that, along with the way that other things come out, that is definitely a bit of variability. Now the board is always the same board, and the board is really interesting, and it takes you, well, it took me a couple of plays before I realised some of the intricacies of this board. Because this is an extremely tactical game, and this is probably the best part of the game that I like. It is so tactical in what you build and where you place things, and it can be very cutthroat. Now, this is the board at the end of a 2-player game that I did yesterday. There'll be a video on my channel, me doing a solo game against one ultimate opponent, and this is the board at the end of the game. You always use the same board, no matter how many players are in the game. Now, I've played this at 3 players, 4 players, and I played the 2-player game yesterday. One thing that I'm concerned about the scaling is there isn't any. On the board, there is no scaling changes depending on the number of players. So in a 2-player game, you've got a lot more. The game still works, but it is certainly less tight and less aggressive. And in a 4-player game, you will have a lot more player interaction going on the board itself. Whereas in a 2-player game, you can generally build wherever you want to build. You know, the other player might get in the way, but in a 4-player game, that's 3 other players that might get in the way. Anyway, the board is really clever in the way that it works. Basically, the water will come down from the mountains and it will go into the dam. So let's say that dam wasn't there, and it will stop at a dam, and then there's one water, size 1 dam, so it'll overflow, and it'll go down here, and it'll go down here, and then it will stop here. And this dam is a size 2 dam, so it can store 2 water. If another water went in there, it would overflow. So that's how the water flows down. Now, what you can do in the game is you can say, well, hang on a minute, this player here is getting all of the benefit, because once the water is in your dam, you can then use that water to generate energy. So what you could do is the pink player might decide to come along and build a dam here. And what that means is when the water now comes down from the mountain, it's going to be trapped by the pink dam instead of the white one. So if a player builds a really, really good dam and is getting lots of energy from it because it's got lots of water in it, you can build a dam slightly higher upstream. It's in the same basin, and then you can basically scupper them. So there is definitely the player interaction here. Now, that white player could have built it there to start with. It's more expensive, but they could have done that, and then that stops somebody stealing it later on. But money is very, very tight in the game. These ones here, these are neutral dams. There is always a size 3 neutral dam down in the plains, a size 2 neutral dam down in the hills, and a size 1 neutral dam in the mountains. And you can use the water in the neutral dams to ship energy in order to basically get started. So you can only ship water from your own dam or a neutral dam. You ship it through a conduit, which can be anybody's. You can use your own conduit, or you can use a conduit from another player. You have to pay them to do so, and this is one of the interesting aspects of the game. If somebody else, let's say the white player, has built this dam here, the pink player goes along and builds that conduit there, the white player is now going to have to use that conduit to generate energy. So they're getting some of the income from it. So that's interesting. And then through a powerhouse. Now you can only ship energy through your own powerhouse. So, and basically that's how you do it. Now what would happen in this case, this 2 water would go up here, and look, this line is actually going upwards. So water doesn't always go downhill. This conduit here will send water up here through this powerhouse and then down into there. One of which will go there, the other one will overflow and go in there. So you can really set up a nice chain of links here. Anyway, very, very tactical. Lots of player interaction in this part, especially in a 4-player game, and the board is really interesting in the way that it works out. And that is probably my favourite part of the game. It's worker placement, and I like worker placement games. There's nothing really new there apart from there's actions on the left-hand side and actions on the right-hand side. The ones on the right-hand side will cost you money, so you can still do it, but it would cost you a bit of money. But this bit, the tactical nature of this game, I've said tactical way too many times. But anyway, yeah, really good, really like that part of the game. The other thing that I like about the game is these wheels. So what happens in this game is stuff that you build requires a combination of either concrete mixers or excavators. And what you do, if I want to say build a power station, I will slot that in there like that. I will put the required number of these little gribblies in there like that, and then the wheel will rotate one. So basically the things that you use to build are kind of tied up. And then once the wheel has rotated all the way back to the start, you get that back, so you can do that again, and you get these back. So the resources that you use to build, well, not the resources, but these machines that you use to build, they're not lost. They're still yours, but they're being used up. And there are things in the game you can do to get that to spin further, which is the spanner action and a few other things. And that's really nice as well. So other than that, standard worker placement stuff. But yeah, they're the sort of the two main bits that I like about the game. Now, let's talk about the rulebook. So the rulebook overall was quite nicely laid out. I mean, it was all very clear as I was reading through it. Lots of graphical examples, suggested setups for your first game so you don't actually draft them. Bits. So basically the first game, it recommends you don't use the patent office. And we did. I mean, yeah, we followed those instructions. The first game we played, we didn't use the patent office. And what's nice is that the bits that are highlighted in pink, it basically says skip those for your first game. So really good, well laid out rulebook. However, then when we came to actually play it, some of the things in the game weren't really explained in the rulebook. So there's one executive officer, Mahiri. The explanation of how it works in the rulebook is very, very vague. I've had to go online. I've got an answer from one of the designers, and the answer that they gave is not mentioned at all in the rulebook. So although the overall rulebook was good, there's parts of it that, yeah, were not that clear. It could have done with a bit more work. Also, the solo game, you click a QR code and that takes you to a 12-page PDF on the Cranio website, which I got yesterday. Unfortunately, the solo game, they're going to need to update that PDF because there's typos in it, there's errors in it, and there's certainly one part where it contradicts itself, and I'm not sure. So I'll let them know about that, but the solo rules, they're probably fine. It's just the rulebook needs a little bit of work. Graphic design wise, now first of all, the artwork in the game I like. Artwork is very subjective, but I particularly like the artwork of this. Some people might say it's bland and it's boring, but it's extremely... so I've switched on to graphic design. The artwork is nice. I don't mind these boards being a bit dark, and the fact that the titles of the section are a bit hard to read because of the typeface they've used, doesn't matter. Once you've played the game, even before you've played the game, the name is just thematic. It doesn't matter. It's just a worker placement spot that gets you stuff. Graphic design, this bit is extremely clear. It might look a bit fiddly, it might look a bit complicated, but it's actually very clear. All these little arrows, the colours, yeah, really good job with the graphic design on this board. Generally speaking, the iconography was fairly clear. The parts where the graphic design I feel was let down is this patent office here. So the patent office, every round there are 3 things to choose from, and you put the tiles in stacks of 1, 2 and 3. So what I have seen done is people will take a 1 tile and put it there, a 2 tile and put it there, and a 3 tile and put it there. And you don't do that. You go through all of the 1s first, and then the 2s, and then the 3s. However, because this was laid out like that, it makes it really counterintuitive, because you think that one would go across to there, that one would go to there, and that one would go to there. So what I do when I'm playing in the game, and I would recommend you do this as well, ignore what's printed on the board, put the 3s there, put the 2s there, and put the 1s there. So it's clear that you do all the 1s first, then the 2s, then the 3s. That bit. Another thing that happened over the weekend at Manacon, and this was an interesting one, this executive officer board here, this is where you put your money, your excavators, and your concrete mixers, okay? However, one player, Colin, and it's a valid point, had that on his player board and thought he had 3 money. It's a very, very minor point, but this should have been faded out. And I know there's no 1 in it, but this should have been faded out a bit, because once you've got things on there, that kind of looks like you've got 3. And it messed him out because he thought he had 3 and he didn't, he only had 2. Anyway, little minor thing, but I thought I'd point it out because it did happen and it did mess up one player. Components wise then, right, let's talk about overall components wise is pretty good. The wooden pieces are really nice, they're big, thick, chunky. The player boards, dual layer player boards, no warping, as I have seen on some other dual layer player boards. So they're really nice. All of these components are pretty good. The board and all of the other stuff and the punch board, it's fine, no problems with that whatsoever. Where the components do kind of fall down is these gribblies. Right, so these concrete mixers and these excavators, there's 3 different types for each one. So you've got these tiny little concrete mixers. Then you've got these slightly bigger ones. These are worth 3. And then you've got the even bigger ones that are worth 5. Then you've got the excavators, which are worth 1, which are also worth 3 and also worth 5. They're a little bit fiddly. They're a little bit weird. And if you look very, very carefully, There's kneecaps on this one. Basically, the design is not just a bigger version. It's a slightly different mold or a cutting tool thing for each one. No need. They should have just been 3 of them, 3 different sizes, and it's odd that the middle one is a darker colour than the lighter. These are just a bit weird. Also, they look like Space Invaders. Now, they're supposed to be like, yeah, steampunky, dystopian concrete mixers, I don't know. But, yeah, they look a bit too much like Space Invaders to me. Right, 2 of the biggest problems with the game, the water. Now, since getting this game, Cranio, I think, have accepted that this water is really not good. These, I don't understand these. I don't know whether they're from some kind of jewellery kit, but the problem is with them is twofold. First of all, they're a horrible shiny silver on one side. So when you put them in a pile like that, half of them land silver side up, and you've got to flip them face down like this. The second biggest problem is you can't pick them up. So these, for me, are totally non-functional, and I do not use these in the game. They might look like nice, pretty gems, but as I say, the fact that they're quite often landing silver side up and you can't pick them up. So I have replaced them at the moment. I've used the Anachrony water for one game, but I've since then found some little blue wooden discs. And I believe, to be fair, Cranio have finally accepted, this has been a problem, and they are going to send some kind of wooden replacements out to people. I've been using these wooden discs, and I use these in my solo game, and I'm actually going to try and get bigger discs, because what I want is wooden discs that are the height of the dams, because that way, when you've got a height of 2, it will be the same height as the dam, and thematically you'll be able to see that the water flows over the top. So yes, I would recommend replacing your water things, and as I think Cranio are going to replace them anyway. The second thing is the wheel. And I wonder what percentage of people have watched this video literally just to see the wheel. Now, there's been a lot of concerns about this wheel, the fact that it doesn't work, or it does work, and again, this copy I've got, I am not 100% sure if this is the copy that everybody else is getting, so I'm not going to be too critical of it. But it does work. It is a little fiddly. That has to slot in, and it has to slot in perfectly because it's then turning. And if you don't slot it in absolutely right, it won't turn. So that's a little fiddly. The other thing about the game is it's sticking, so you kind of have to turn it like that, which works. But sometimes as it's turning, these spokes here can rise up and then they can go over the piece like that, and it doesn't quite. I'm sure there must have been a better solution to this, and I'm not sure what, but this, I don't know, and I'm not sure how. Now, I've played this game 5 times and it's working fine. I have seen pictures online of people getting warped boards. Cranio are going to replace them. So if you're getting really badly warped boards, then Cranio will replace them. So yeah, I'm not sure about this. It does work. It's a bit of a clever mechanism, but I think there may be a better way of doing it, and I look forward to people making their own wheels online. I don't think they should have had to. I think there should have been a better design for it, but it is what it is. And as I say, I've played 5 games and it works. It's just a little fiddly. What else is it that I've not talked about? I think I've talked about most things that I wanted to talk about. Gameplay I really like. I would, at the moment, never say no to a game of this. I very much enjoy it. One thing that I have a concern about is the balance of the game. And if it weren't for my last game, I would be a bit more critical about this. But bearing in mind, I've only played it 4 or 5 times. But we have seen people in most of the games we've played not produce energy for the first half of the game. Just build stuff and not do anything with what's on the board. And the people who do something with what energy is on the board end up coming last. So the game kind of thinks, oh, well, maybe I should just not bother doing the thing that the game is about and just building stuff and then going for a late game splurge. The last time I played, I was producing energy from turn 1 and I won the game. Now, whether I would win the game against players who were expert at the game, I don't know, because my winning score was about 100. And I have seen winning scores in the 150s, 160s. So I don't know, maybe it wouldn't work, but it also depends on the scoring tiles. If the board setup lends itself to an end game splurge where, oh, you're going to get points for dams that you've built, you're going to get points for this all at the end of the game, then that particular setup does kind of encourage, not do anything at the start of the game and then just build up. Because if you're shipping 1 energy through at a time, you're spending 1 action to gain 4 or 5, maybe 6 energy, and that's it. If you've built up all of your dams and it can store 3 water and you get a really good conduit, then at the end of the game you can be producing energy and you can be getting, 14, 15, 16 with one action, which allows you to fulfill these national contracts, which are really powerful. So that may be a strategy. It's certainly not put me off playing it again. Definitely want to play it, and I want to try all sorts of different strategies to see how that works out. Right, just a couple of other things. Game time. It could be a bit prone to AP because there's so much thinking involved in this bit. If you watch my solo playthrough that I've done, my brain is exploding a couple of points just because I've got so many choices of what to do. Your first game might run to 3, maybe 3.5, maybe even 4 hours with 4 players, but I reckon you could play this game in probably 2 to 2.5 hours once you know what you're doing. And that is probably, that is my estimate for how long a game would take once you all know what you're doing. The other thing I found in my notes, which was missing from the rulebook, is one of the end game scoring tiles gives you points based on how many things you have in the mountains, the plains, and the the hills and the plains. And these power stations here, it's not clear where they are. They're kind of between the hills and the plains. It doesn't say anywhere in the rulebook where they are. It doesn't say anywhere in the rulebook where they are. We have now had an official answer, but the only way we found out is by looking at the 3D board, which has been made. I don't have the 3D board, and the 3D board clearly shows that these are in the hills and these are in the plains. But without that, there's no indication in the rulebook as to where these are. So yeah, there's just a few little finer points of the game. It's kind of let down a great game. I really enjoy the game. I think the gameplay is fantastic. I am going to enjoy playing this game more and more, but it's been let down a couple of times by bits in the rulebook that could have been clearer and some component issues, which is a bit of a shame, but hopefully shouldn't stop you enjoying the game itself. Anyway, that is what I think about Barrage. There's also an expansion, the Lee Water project. I've not even opened this yet, so if you want to hear what I think about this, tune in on a future monthly video log where I play it. I now feel that I'm ready to play this. There's a whole host of extra stuff included in it, but I'm normally playing the game with people who haven't played before. Therefore, the expansion doesn't come out. So anyway, that's everything that I think I wanted to say about it. Thank you very much for watching. And as I mentioned at the start, if you enjoy the content that I create, please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching. Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.